Welcome back, guys. This is going to be the last video on how to make our little game here. We're going to be adding the bullets in, so we're going to start straight away with that. So this is the code that we've been working on. If you haven't got it, it can be found in the GitHub files. And the next thing we're going to be looking at today is actually we want to add a bullet in. Also, we're going to try and make the game harder as it goes on. So we can speed up the game by obviously increasing the FPS, but obviously if we increase the FPS, everything gets faster. So what we want to do is we want to just increase the speed of our asteroids. Our asteroids have like a movement speed attached to them. So here, where we're actually moving them in place. So what we can do is we can set sort of a flag that every time our code passes this specific point, it'll actually increment the movement speed by then. So we're going to do that. We're going to do that by creating an event called increase speed. It's going to be a pygame.user event +1. And then what we're going to do, we're going to create a timer. And then we are going to increase our timer by our variable increase speed every 3000 milliseconds. So with this in place here, this will actually create a user event which increases our speed every time a certain amount of time passes. In the while loop now, we need to check for this actual event happening. So in our for bit here, so for event in pygame.getEvent, we can actually check if the event type increase speed is happening. So like I say, this will only ever happen once we've passed a certain point, so once we've done 3000 milliseconds. So increase speed will happen. So if this happens, we want to increase the speed that our asteroids are moving at by 0.5. And this altogether will, we may have to tweak the way the asteroids work in just a minute, but this should be enough to get our speed increased. So now that we've increased this speed here, we actually need to add a variable to start it up. So at the top here, I'm going to create a constant for it, and that's going to equal 5. Now my enemy's move, instead of it just being set to 10 here, so at the moment it's moving 10 pixels, if we set it so it moves by speed, maybe we can set that to 10 at the beginning. So at the beginning of the game it's going to move by 10 pixels, and then every single time we get this user event, we're going to actually increment that by 0.5. So it's going to keep on going round by that. So these two things together is going to gradually make the game harder. So the next thing we're going to look at is actually adding in the bullet from here. So put this up with all of your other classes. I'm going to put it underneath the player class, and it's going to be a class. It is a bullet, and we're going to inherit all the stuff from pygame.sprite.sprite. We need to initialize it again, so def __ init. So this is very similar to other bits and pieces here. It actually takes an argument which is the player, and the reason it takes that is because we're going to set this bullet to actually be drawn where the player's position is. So obviously we don't want the bullet to just be drawn anywhere, it needs to be updated with the player. So it needs to take that as an argument. So we're going to put it into here, and then we're going to use that in a minute. So I'm going to show you how that actually works in a minute. So our bullet is going to need an image, so I've just set it to like a little sort of square. It's also going to need a surface area, just like the other ones. So it's going to need a surface area, that's going to need a rect as well. And then it's going to need a rect. So it's going to be a rect of this surface area. So it's only 10 by 10, this bullet. You can make different bullets of different sizes. You can mess around with the size of this bullet if you like. I just found that this is a good starting point. So we're going to create a rectangle by using the getRect function, and the centre of it, so this is where we need the player's position. So the centre of it is going to be equal to the player.rect.mid top. So, this is lid top, mid top. So this will draw our bullet for us at the player's position, the middle top of their rectangle, which is exactly where we want that bullet to spawn. And then we're also just going to have another attribute for here, which is full. So whether or not we're fired yet. So basically, we don't want the user to be able to hold down the space bar and it just to bring out like a stream of bullets. We're going to have it so they can only fire one bullet at a time. And we're going to use this to toggle on and off as to whether or not they can actually fire the bullets. So now we need a function here to actually look at actually firing the bullets. So this is going to take self and it's going to take player again. And we're going to look for the pressed keys. So this will return any keys which are being pressed, and we're going to look if they've pressed the space bar. So they have to press the space bar, and the fired is set to false as well. So so there can't be more than one bullet on the screen at one time. So self.fired equals false. You could toggle this so you can have a number of bullets on the screen at one time, but we'll just keep it simple so we can only have one bullet on the screen at one time. So if they've pressed space and they haven't already got a bullet on the screen, then we're going to be able to create the rectangle, and we're going to actually move it and draw it from there. So here we're actually recreating that rectangle. So if they press space, we're going to create the rectangle at the player's rectangle's position. So it's actually going to create our bullet at the top of our player image there. And then we're going to set the fired attribute to true so that we can't now fire another one. So what we now want to do is we will look at, so if a bullet has been fired, we want to move that bullet. If self.fired is true, we want to actually move that bullet. So we're going to draw the bullet first of all. So our screen, what's our screen called? Window. So our screen is called window dot blit, and we want to draw that. We want to draw the image that we've actually loaded in already at the rectangle which we've created at the player's position. So if this toggle is to true, we actually draw the bullet, and then we can move the bullet from there. So we're going to do self.rect.move underscore in place, and we're going to move it up the screen. We're going to move it 5 pixels up the screen per cycle. And then if the bullet actually reaches the top of the screen, we want to reset its position down to the bottom. So within here, we're going to do that check as well. So if the top of that rectangle ever reaches the top of the screen, so the top of the screen is 0 and the bottom of the screen is 600, so if it's ever less than 4 or whatever, you could do it so it's less than 1 or something, whatever, you know, as long as it's a very, very low number in there. If it's ever less than that amount, what we want to do is we want to take that rectangle, we want to put it back down to the bottom, and we set that fired to false, so that we don't then redraw it and remove it back up the screen there. And that's it, that's all our movement for the rectangle as well. Final thing we're going to do is we're going to create a function called reset position or reset pos, and it's going to be very, very similar to what we have already. But we need it as a separate function because top. We need this as a separate function because there are 2 times that we will be resetting the bullet's position down to the bottom of the screen. One time will be when the bullet reaches the top of the screen, and that's what this if statement deals with, and the second time will be if a bullet collides with an asteroid, and that's what this function here will deal with as well. So we need them as separate functions in this case. There may be a way to combine it, but I found that this is the most straightforward way. And that is our bullet class done there. So what we want to do now is we're going to actually look at how to draw this bullet class and then actually have it interact. So I've just scrolled down to my groups here, and before I move on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that bullet into a group. So the reason I'm doing this is because I may want to, or you may want to actually tinker with this game and make it so that you have more than one bullet and things like that. So it's actually good practice to add these bullets into a group. Obviously you need to create the bullet as well, so I'm going to just create that here. B1 equals bullet bracket, and then this bullet I'm going to add into a bullets list. But then if I wanted to create a second bullet, B2, I could add that into the list as well. But by putting it in a list as well, into a group like this, it's actually very straightforward to be able to check whether or not that bullet has collided with anything in another group. So what we would need to look at is, has this group touched anything in this group, and if it has, what has it touched, and what do I do for it from there? So in the while loop, what I want to do is add another for loop, and I'm going to say for enemy in enemies. So I've got my enemy, also it's called enemy group. So for enemy in enemy group. So this is going to look at each enemy, and it's going to say, we're going to check for that collision. So if Pygame sprite collide any, and we're looking at the 2 things. So we're looking at the enemy and we're looking at the bullets. Let's make sure. So it needs to be called bullets, that group as well. So we're looking in that bullets group, and then we're just putting a false flag in here as well. So if my enemy and any of those bullets have collided, we want something to happen. So we're going to set destroyed to true. We're going to add 5 to our score. We are going to call enemy.move, but then we're going to pass it the destroyed boolean, because this will trigger a different part of its move function, and then we are going to draw .blit enemy.image enemy.rect. So we redraw them here, and then we are going to take our bullet and we are going to call the reset pos function to actually reset that bullet there, and then we can actually do that. We can just do bullets and reset position there as well if we wanted to, and we're going to toggle that boolean to destroyed equals false. Okay, right, now I'm just going to check our enemy's movement actually does take that at the moment. So at the moment my enemy actually just takes a score, so we're going to pass it another thing as well to check if it's been destroyed. And all we're going to do here is we're going to say if self.rect.bomb is greater than 600 or destroyed equals true, then we are going to set its position down to the bottom. It actually adds 1 to the score as well. So we could put this in a separate if statement, but let's not worry about that too much just now. Now down the bottom here where I just made that movement function, I need to pass it score as well. So score and destroyed both get passed in. So let's test it. Straight away we've got invalid syntax. That needed a full stop there. Let's try again. Bullet is missing an argument. Yep, so here we've created bullet. I need to actually pass it P1 as well, because I've said it needs that as an argument. And that should be it, hopefully. Oh, I haven't put the image into the right folder. So I've just got my bullet PNG, and we'll drop that into my Asteroid Avoid folder. And we're going to try. Hopefully it's going to work this time. Nope. So where I've called my enemy.move again, I now need to pass it whether or not it's been destroyed. So every time I've done my enemy.move, I need to also pass it whether or not it's been destroyed. So this may be previous code I need to update. Line 180. Here. Oh. And I may well actually need to, at the beginning, set destroyed to false when we start the game. Oh, okay, so I actually haven't called the fire function anywhere, so the bullet actually isn't being created anywhere. So we actually need for entity in bullets. So this is actually for everything in the bullets. So obviously if I, and it takes fire, I'm sure it takes a argument, so it takes the P1 as the position. So I believe this should be it now. So obviously I'm saying everything that's in bullets, fire them, which will actually, there we go, so that's actually working now. So actually let's check to see if the collision works. So there we go, that's got rid of our asteroid. So that's looking really good, and I think that the speed is actually increasing as well, so it's making it a bit harder. So it's actually looking pretty good there. So a couple of errors there at the end, so it's always worth obviously testing things. So we're more or less there now. So a couple of little tweaks which I'm going to show you. So as you probably just noticed there, I had a collision which was actually quite close to my ship. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reduce the hitbox of my ship and reduce the hitbox of the asteroids a little bit so they can get a little bit closer together, because obviously these are images with like corners around the edges, so if those two corners which the user can't see are intersecting, it's going to seem like a bit unfair if they actually lose the game because of that. So we can actually just fiddle around with those two bits here to kind of tweak it. I'll show you how to tweak it. So we're going to change two little things in order to get this this to actually be a little bit fairer. So we're going to reduce the hitbox of our player first of all. So in order to do that, I sort of tweaked around with these, and what we need to do is in the self.surf, we're going to reduce the surface size of our player. So 54 by 118 is what I kind of came up with to kind of reduce the wings off of it and just sort of cut the tip of the point off as well, so that actually kind of makes our rectangle just the body of the spaceship, which is a bit fairer, I think. And then here for our center point, we're actually going to change the way we actually draw the rectangle now as well. I'm going to do this as the mid bottom equals half the screen width. So just let me check to make sure I did screen width, so I did it as all capitals, so I'll just take that there. So the screen width divided by 2, so that'll put it in the middle of the screen, and then obviously we want the screen height as well. So that will set our rectangle's bottom point basically to the bottom of the screen. So now that the rectangle is in the bottom of the screen, we need to draw the spaceship so it kind of follows along with that. And all we need to do with that is we scroll back down to our while loop. We're actually drawing the spaceship. Oh, I think we're actually drawing it in its function still. So here where we're drawing it, instead of drawing it straight at that point there, we are going to draw it at self.rect.center x minus 45 and self.rect.center y minus 90. Okay, so this is just sort of a little bit tweaks to get that rectangle exactly where it should be. So if we run this, let's have a look. Our collisions should be a bit more forgiving. Let's put them all in brackets like this. This is obviously taking one argument with two coordinates, so let's try that. And if we, there we go, that's a lot more forgiving now. We can see we can kind of get past our asteroids without triggering. And there we go, it was a little bit closer to the asteroids as well. If we go to the enemy and we reduce the size of the surface here, and so if we reduce this surface size here, actually that will be enough. But the enemy, we can literally just reduce its surface size, and that reduces the enemy's hitbox. So you can reduce it even more. You see we're kind of getting a little bit closer to these now. We'll go from there. The final thing I think I can show you guys is how to add in a little bit of sound. It's very, very straightforward. So get like just sound playing over the top of this. It's 5 lines of code, and I'm going to add that in here at the top. So in order to get the sound working, we are just going to do from Pygame import mixer, because this is the set we need to actually be using. We're going to initialize mixer. Then we're going to load our MP3, so mixer.music.load, so you can load any kind of small MP3 with this. So I think the one I've got is called 8bits.mp3. And oh, bit 8 bits. Let me just make sure it's in here. So I've got a few in here. It's not in here. I'll load this one instead, then space.mp3. So these are actually, I just downloaded all these from the free music on YouTube, so you can do exactly the same. So unfortunately I can't share this music with you guys, but if you just type in royalty-free music and YouTube, you get to all of the stuff. You can download it from there. So this is me now setting the volume and then starting it playing, mixer.music.play, and then if I run this, that should be it ready to go. So there we go. So for some reason my Mac stopped recording sound at this point. You can see the game's working and the music was working at that point. So you can download all this code on the GitHub, and I hope you really enjoyed that. We'll be making Space Invaders next time, so we'll catch up with you guys next time.